Hey guys, MoiDawg here, and today I'm happy to say that we are finally seeing the official Aussie faction in Squad. Now, it's not fully released yet, but this past weekend, OWI held a playtest for the upcoming 12.5 patch. And the biggest addition to the patch is the long-awaited Australian Defence Forces as the next real, non-modded, playable faction in the game. If you're unaware of the history of this faction, the Aussies were originally a mod for Squad, which released way back in 2019 until it was ultimately sold to OWI in order to be included as an official faction and slated for a release in 2021. Well, it's now 2022 and we're finally getting to see the first real look at the official Aussies in game. And if you're familiar with the mod, I will say right now there are some changes to both vehicles and weapons that you'll see for the real version, but it still looks great. The weapon and player models are looking good, and it's definitely going to be a great addition to the game as a whole. So in this video, we're going to be checking out every weapon, vehicle, and kit they have so you know what to look forward to when it does release officially. But before we get into that, I do want to remind everyone that I stream every weekday at twitch.tv/MoiDawg. So if you do want to catch some gameplay live, chat about this or some other updates, or maybe even some other games, or just hang out with the community, do make sure to tune in. And I'd like to take a quick moment to thank today's sponsor, Apex Gaming PCs. If you didn't know, I've partnered with these guys to help y'all build brand new custom gaming PCs fit for whatever you want to do. If you're new to the PC gaming world, I do have some recommended builds so you can get yourself started right. And if you're more experienced and want to tweak things like add additional RAM, maybe get a new GPU, or simply change the case, everything is fully customizable as well. And if you click the link in the description below and use code MOI at checkout, you can save up to $250 off your next PC. Click the link, check out some awesome PCs, save some money, and support the channel. But that's enough of that. Let's get on with the Aussies. First off, it is important to note that everything I'll be going over here is the playtest version of the faction, meaning that one or two things may be tweaked and changed, but for the most part, with my experience in Squad playtest variants, this is more or less what will be released, barring any huge bugs and game crashing issues. With that being said, the Aussies will be releasing as a Blue 4 faction, meaning that they will be up against teams like Russia, MEA, and Insurgents, and with them brings another new 5.56 primary weapon, the EF88 Austere Bullpup, which is the Australian Defence Force classification for the Steyr AUG. This thing looks and sounds great in game, and it comes with a foregrip as standard for all of the kits, holds 30 rounds, and can fire semi and full auto. Although I'm not sure if this is intended, but the iron sights, at least right now, cannot be ranged, so maybe expect that to be fixed. But the additional optics you'll see in game are the EOTech for your mid-range option and the Elcan Spectre for your long-range optic that allows you to sight up to 1,000 meters away. The weapon itself feels a bit like the M4 when firing both semi and full auto, and although it is a bullpup, it just feels a lot more powerful than the British L85A2. I also really like this Spectre, and prior to this, the Russian 1P78 optic was my favorite optic in game, but I actually think this might now take the new top spot. It's an extremely clean sight and gives you great ranging since most engagements in game are within 400 meters. And I did try taking a few pot shots at the 1,000 meter targets to try out this 1,000 meter ranging, but it's just so incredibly hard to physically see on your screen that it's less for rifle shots and will be more used for the machine gun suppression with LMGs that the Aussies get. Still, I would be very surprised if anyone gets killed at this range, but it's still nice to see. The EF88 also has an EF88C variant, which is honestly exactly the same weapon, but a shorter barrel. And unlike the other variants in game, like the G3 and its shorter barreled variant, the HK51, I really couldn't tell much of a difference in recoil between the two. This may change for balance purposes with the EF88C causing more recoil, but at the moment these weapons perform identically despite looking slightly different. For sidearms, the Aussies received the self-loading Pistol Mk3, and honestly it just feels like every other conventional pistol in the game with a little reskin, which I'm not complaining, but if you're expecting something crazy unique, then you're gonna have to look elsewhere. And by elsewhere, I mean specifically look at the Aussies knife. The Aussies come equipped with the Special Operations Combatives Program, or SOCP Knife. Well, technically, I think it's actually classified as a dagger, but semantics aside, it's a great looking melee weapon, and although it doesn't look like there are any unique animations for it, it is really cool to see something so identifiable, since it would have been really easy to simply copy paste another bayonet knife to their kit. For the grenades, the Aussies get the F1 Fragmentation Grenade, which is another unique model for the faction, and has the same sounds as a US M67 grenade, meaning you'll hear the pin but not the loud pop you get from Russian RGDs. And lastly, Aussies get red and blue smoke as their faction colored smoke in addition to the white through the M18 Smoke Grenade, the same smokes used by all Blue 4 factions as well as the MEA. Now for the kits themselves, let's first start off with the squad leaders. And like the British, the Aussies SLs actually receive grip pods, which are foregrip attachments that have a built-in bipod. It's a very nice addition to the kit, and since you do have tracer rounds, it lets you accurately fire and designate targets for the rest of your squad. SL1 has iron sights, SL2 has the EOTech, and SL3 has the Spectre optic, which is pretty standard for squad leader kits. Both the irons and EOTechs also have 2 grenades included, while the long-range Spectre optic has only 1 grenade. And of course, as squad leaders, we can place rallies, which have the Aussies' own unique backpack and plate carriers included. For crewmen and pilots, strangely enough on all kits, whether you're lead crewman, lead pilot, crewman, or pilot, you all have the EF88 Rifle with the Spectre long-range optic. This is kind of confusing for me because the EF88 in general is a shorter barrel, meaning it's supposed to be used for closer range combat, but you also get the Spectre long-range optic, which is confusing in itself, but typically in squad, crewmen don't even have optics, or if they do, at most they would get an EOTech. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was adjusted and in the future, all the pilots and crewmen actually simply receive EOTechs for their rifle. But for now, at least, the Aussies are the only faction with long-range optics for vehicle crews, which is a very interesting balance choice to say the least. Medics have 2 kits, with Medic 1 receiving the EOTech optic, grenade, and binos, while Medic 2 drops the grenade in exchange for the Spectre optic. Additionally, I did notice that the Aussies have a unique bandage model as well, which is another nice way to make them feel like their own faction instead of simply a reskin. Riflemen are fairly standard, with the iron sights and 2 grenades for Rifleman 1, EOTech and 2 grenades for Rifleman 2, and the Spectre and 1 grenade for Rifleman 3, with of course their own unique ammo bag where you can see that brand new bandage up on the top as well. Like other conventional factions, the Aussies have a squad automatic rifleman kit as well as a fire support automatic rifleman kit, with the first AR kit receiving the F89 Mini-Me with EOTech and a grenade, while the second kit having the long-range Spectre as its optic and no grenade. Honestly, if you just treat the F89 like the US saw, you should be fine, but I do think the Spectre optic makes for a much more effective weapon. Being able to accurately fire off bursts at long range is going to make this an incredibly fun kit to play, and I can't wait to use it in a real game. For the Grenadier, we get the EF88 with the SL40 underbarrel grenade launcher that fires high explosive dual purpose grenades, as well as red, blue, and white smoke. At first, I thought this thing looked incredibly clunky, but after playing around with it a bit, I absolutely love this. The sight picture looks great for the grenades. You can range everything from 50 meters all the way up to 400 meters in 50-meter increments, making it one of, if not the most adjustable GL in the game. And since it does have the dual-purpose grenades, you can actually do some slight damage to lightly armored vehicles and tires. Overall, it's a really fun kit with an incredibly user-friendly GL. For anti-tank, there's no new AT launchers unfortunately, and the light anti-tank kits have the Law, while the hats will be using the Carl Gustav. LAT 1 is equipped with the EF88 and EOTech, 1 Law round, and 2 grenades and binos, while LAT 2 has the Spectre optic, 1 Law, 2 grenades, and no binos. Hat 1 has iron sights with 1 heat round, 1 tandem, and 2 smoke rounds for the Carl Gustav, while Hat 2 has the same exact loadout, but with an EOTech. As the Aussie Marksman, you'll also be able to play with a brand new addition to the game, the HK417 with an 8-time optic. The HK model looks fantastic, and while shooting, the rifle feels like you'd expect it to when you fire. And you even get a foregrip so you can maintain decent accuracy without needing to bipod. My biggest complaints with Marksman rifles are being able to be that accurate when on the move, and the HK417 addresses that completely. As machine gunners, you'll be receiving the Maxi-Me, and if you couldn't tell by the name, it's a larger Mini-Me. And you'll have the Spectre optic. I don't know why, but for some reason, I thought this would feel more like the 240 Bravo, probably because it's a Blue 4 faction, but as I fired it, I really got PKP vibes. It might be the sound, or the rate of fire, or I'm not really sure, but this machine gun feels like it absolutely shreds, and paired with the Spectre, once again, it's going to be extremely deadly, especially on longer range maps like Kohat. Lastly, we have the Aussie Combat Engineer kits. And this is where many of those who knew the Aussie mod back in the day will probably be getting upset. In the original mod, the Aussies had a breacher class, which was essentially a combat engineer with C4 and a shotgun. Unfortunately, the Aussie shotgun is no more, the breacher is no more, and we simply have 2 combat engineers. But even without a breacher, the Aussies still have a breacher in spirit, since the combat engineer role has actually been split in 2. The first engineer kit has the EF88C Inspector optic, but they also have the anti-tank mine, razor wire, and sandbags, while the second engineer kit has the EF88 with iron sights and only Comp B, the Aussie C4 equivalent. And that's it. There's no mines for the Comp B user, there's no sandbags, not even a repair kit. And if you want to use the mine, you can't use the Comp B. I both like this and I don't like this, but I really want to see how this plays out in real game since 1, I believe it will reduce mine spam on the map, and 2, it should reduce lone wolf combat engineers running around in C4 and everything in sight. This is a huge change, so comments below on this one for all you combat engineer mains. Is splitting this up between mines and C4 a good change or a bad? Because honestly, I'm torn and I'm not quite sure how to think on this one. Alright, with the kits out of the way, we also have some new vehicles as well, but for starters, the transport and logi trucks are simply reskinned HX60s, which you would be familiar with if you play the British. But for the lightly armored vehicles, they have the Bushmaster Protected Mobility Vehicle, or PMV. It's essentially an Aussie MAT-V, but fits up to 10 people, so finally an entire squad can fit inside one of these things instead of separating between 2 MAT-Vs or 2 Tigers. There's an open-top MG party bus variant with 2 Mag-85s in the back and 1 up front, a single Mag-85 variant, as well as one with an RWS 50 cal system. For the Aussie IFV, we'll be getting the aslav 25, which has 70 rounds of AP Sabo, 230 rounds of HE, and a coax, and it includes a command hatch with just over 100 or so degrees of visibility to the front of the turret. And although this is not entirely what the Marines use, the aslav was developed from the Marine Corps LAV 25, so do expect this vehicle to perform similarly, if not exactly the same as the LAV 25, whenever we do finally get the Marines in game. And although it's not super exciting, it is realistic, and the Aussie tank is the M1A1 Abrams, a US export Abrams variant, which in-game is honestly exactly the same as the US Abrams, aside from a different command gun hatch and no open-top machine gun position. The Aussies are also the first faction to have 2 separate helicopters. The reskinned Blackhawk, which we're all familiar with, as well as the MRH-90, a much larger helicopter with the same carrying capacity as the Russian and MEA HIPs. Overall, I really like this helicopter model, but I did notice that the collective is a bit harder to see while flying compared to others, and the modules themselves do show that the MRH-90 has 2 engines. In the real world, this is a dual engine vehicle, so I would be curious to see if in-game, each of these have had their own damage model, or if it's simply a flavor text type of thing. Either way, I really like this helicopter. I think it's been fun to fly, and it kind of reminds me of a Puma. A little bit easier to fly hip, if that makes any sense. And finally, for their last vehicle, as the commander for the Aussies, you'll be calling in an FA-18 Hornet airstrike. Some may say that it's a reskin Sioux strike, but I absolutely love it either way. But that completes the brand new Aussie faction coming to squad in V2.15. I know a lot of people have been calling for a new Red 4 factions, but with so many unique weapons and vehicles, I really think that the Aussies are going to be a fantastic addition to squad. The AUG is a very fun rifle to shoot, the Spectre is probably my new favorite optic in the game, and even helicopter pilots will finally get something completely new to try out. But what do you guys think? Do you like what the faction brings to the game? Are you concerned about some things like the combat engineer changes? Let me know your thoughts on the faction in the comments below, and if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. But that's it for me. Until next time, peace.